Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to cut a hydraulic brake cable. This is particularly useful if you're installing new brake levers, which we are today, so that the cable can be the right length to work with the bike. So let's get to work. Now this video has been shot using the Shimano MT200 series brakes, but actually the principle applies across the entire range of Shimano hydraulic brakes and may well work with other brands as well. The first thing you're going to want to do is to find a way of securing the wheel in place so that the handlebars don't move during the process. For me, this is a pretty simple system. If you keep these away from the frame and the wheels, there's no risk of scratching anything. So that is nice and secure. You then want to remove the existing caliper. These are usually held in place by 5mm Allen or hex key bolts. The cable is usually secured in one way or another. Usually for the rear brakes, it is held in place by various clips, sometimes cable ties. In this case, for the front, it's held in place by a small Allen key bolt. So, just remove that. Sometimes you get away without removing the entire thing, but I think in this case, the whole thing's going to have to come out. So let's put that somewhere safe for now. And now the cable is free. You then need to undo the bolt holding onto the lever, just enough so it can be removed. And assuming you've already removed the handlebar grips, the entire system can be removed. If you're replacing the existing levers, it's probably because they're no good anymore. But do be aware of how you're getting rid of it, because if it's using mineral oil, that isn't particularly harmful to the environment, but the .4 system or 5.1, guys, it's brake fluid. It's what you find in cars and motorbikes, and it really is corrosive and it's really not very good. So do find out with your local refuse collector how best to dispose of it. Okay, the first stage is to get the brake lever on. This is going to be a multi-stage process, lots of adjustments and backwards and forwards, but to put this on for now, it means it's out of the way and kept safe and away from being damaged. Installation is pretty much the same as removal. If you did have a retainer cap for the brake pads, now's the time to remove it. Do not press your brake pads, your brake lever in at any point, because that will mess the system up. You want to thread through the caliper, locate it on top of the brake disc, assuming it's all clean. Now's a good time to clean it up if it isn't. And then you should be given new bolts with the new caliper. They're all a standard size fitment, and usually the head is a 5mm as it was for removal, and that is the case here. And then it's a case of doing up the bolts. Do not do it up completely, because that is the final part of the process when it comes to aligning the caliper to the wheel disc. You just want to do it enough for now that it holds it in place and it's not going to fly around. It makes sense to attach the retainer now as well, so let's just get that in there. Sometimes your hydraulic cable is going to be under a bit of tension because it's arrived folded up, usually in a figure of 8 pattern, and it might be fighting against itself as you're coursing the cable around. We'll sort that in the final process as well, final stages, but for now that is there. It doesn't need to be particularly tight, just enough to hold it in place. Do be aware that if these are rusty heads, you could chew it up, you could strip it. So although this one's going to stay on, actually sooner or later I'm going to replace this so I don't have any troubles in the future. Make sure the cable has a bit of slack so we can adjust the caliper at the end, but make sure it's as tight as you can to the frame or to the fork so it will never get caught up in the actual wheel. Okay, we're pretty much now at the stage where we are ready to cut the cable. The old saying, measure twice, cut once, absolutely applies here, because it's actually more of a case of measure twice, buy once. Because if you mess this up, you're going to have to buy more cable and start from scratch. Okay, you can see there's an awful lot of slack here. We've got all this excess. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off, but before we do, make a mental note of where the cable entry point is. This is just a dust cap. So this is where the cable goes in. It probably adds itself another probably finger's width in. So assume that the cable end is around about here. That's where we want the cable to be. So we need to allow enough slack to be able to turn the wheel. So you can't see it on video at the moment, but that to me looks to be about perfect. So I'm going to cut the cable around about here. Off the camera, I'm going to double check that is the right length. But for me, as I see it at the moment, that is about right to cut the cable. So we're losing this much. And then the next process is to get this bit out and sort that from there. Now you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, fluid is going to go everywhere. Actually, it isn't. And I'll explain why in a moment. But for now, I'm going to measure twice. Actually, I'll probably measure 5 times and cut once. I'll show you the cutting process next. Okay, I've put some tape around to mark the end of where I'm going to cut the cable. When I stop this video, I'm going to check another couple of times. I've already checked about 5 times, as I said, so I am pretty damn sure it is exactly where it should be. But honestly, no matter how many times you cut a hydraulic cable and think you can do it with your eyes shut, you would be an absolute fool not to double, triple, quadruple check that you've got it at the right place. Okay, we're ready to cut. Now, it might be, if you're nervous, you can always cut at the other end just to give you a little bit more give, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Not because I'm nervous, that's because of how I've actually measured it. You can cut the cable in various ways, but you need to use a dedicated cable cutter. This is a rather budget type, but it works absolutely perfectly. The reason you need to use these and not a pair of wire cutters is because this needs to be an absolutely perfect cut. And this has a guide in it. It's shaped so that it can take the shape of the cable itself. It'll be held in nicely. The blade is super sharp, and that will cut down with a bit of force, cutting the cable. Now, we said a moment ago about all of the fluid coming out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a shop towel just out to sight, just down here, which is pretty much directly over the front wheel, just to catch any fluid that comes out. But as you'll see in a moment, it's not going to affect, well, it shouldn't affect the pressure of the braking system itself. Okay, here we go. So we're going to place this on the cable here. If you wanted to, you could actually remove this whole system and put it on a worktop. But we're in situ now. I'm confident this is going to work. So we're going to push down. It's going to make quite a clonk noise. There we go. You've now cut the cable. And when we release this part here, we could get a lot of fluid coming out when we remove it from the actual lever. So that's going to point out of the way for now, upwards. This cable is the cable we're going to keep. So I'm just going to prop that there. I'm going to remove this tape in a moment, but we are one step closer to getting the work done. Most levers, particularly by Shimano, use an 8mm bolt here to secure the cable. Now, you need to be careful here because the end, which I'm going to bend down just to show you, is filled with fluid still. As soon as you open this up, you're going to allow air to get through. And if this cable is pointing downwards, you're going to get fluid all on the floor and potentially on your calipers. It's worth saying right now, in fact, I probably should have said it before you cut the cable, you're meant to be covering the caliper, the brake caliper, with rags, towels, whatever you can, even a paper bag, so there's no chance of any fluid getting onto the new calipers and the new pads. Now that's already been done, so we're going to undo this, and we are going standard anti-clockwise direction. It's quite tough to begin with, so you've got to get a bit of tension. There we go. Once it starts to release, you're in business. Now remember, as soon as we undo this, we're going to open the system, and fluid is going to come out top and bottom, depending which one is at the bottom, for gravity to take over. Much like if you were to suck a drink through a straw and then quickly put your tongue over the top end of the straw, fluid won't come out. As soon as you remove your tongue, fluid's going to go everywhere. It's exactly the system here. So if you want to be cute about it, off the camera, I'm going to put my finger over the end, because I'm definitely not going to use my tongue. And as we undo this, we're going to get to the end. Now, the cable is going to be held in quite firmly with the olive, which I'll explain and show what that is in a minute. But I'm going to swap fingers over. I'm going to give this a bit of a tug, and it should come out, and hopefully no fluid will come out either. Come on, out you come. There we go, it's just starting to work loose. It's always entertaining when you've got a camera, because you've got to do it for the camera's purpose as well. There we go. So I managed to put it out. Because my finger's on the end, this isn't dribbling out fluid. I'm going to keep my finger on, but I'm going to chuck this now, not in the bin, but I'm going to just put this to one side. Now, I have taken the nut, which I just undid from here, off the cable I've just cut, because this is going to go back onto the existing cable. So now I'm going to show you the order in which you put things back onto the shortened piece of cable for it then to go onto the lever. Okay, so we're going to remove the tape that was on before. That was what was on to mark where the cutting needed to be. That can just go to one side. On the cable itself, you're going to put in this order. You're going to put the waterproof cover. That shouldn't have gone anywhere anyway. You're then going to put the securing nut on there as well, and the next thing you're going to put on is the olive. Okay, so this is the olive. Although there was one originally with the cable we cut off, it's a one use only fitment, because this is going to get crushed into place when the when this gets screwed in into the lever. This is going to fit inside, and what happens is, it's a bit like a riv nut, if you know what those are. As this gets screwed in, it's going to compress the two outside edges of this olive and make the inside rise up, and it's going to expand and completely seal the unit so no fluid can come out. Really simple, really clever. There's one more job to do now, which is to put this pin in the end of the cable, but it's not that easy. It's under a fair bit of pressure, and this needs to go in absolutely straight, because this is what the fluid is going to be traveling through. You can see there's a hole through the middle. That's got to be bang on perfect in here, and I've got just the right tool for the job. Okay, I'm going to have to record from the other side of the bike now, because the cable needs to be going in this way, and I really want to show you how it all works, so I'll change the angle. Okay, I'll come around the other side now. So what we're going to do is we're going to secure the cable in place using this snazzy tool. You can spend a fortune on these, and honestly, you spend as much as you want, but this does the job for me. So we're going to go to about here, secure the clamp onto the cable. If you want to get something similar, just jump yourself onto Amazon, hydraulic brake service kit, and that will do the job. Okay, this here, this pin, guys, it is absolutely essential it goes on straight. So it's a bit of a fiddly job, and you may wish to do this on a tabletop rather than work in situ, but I thought it would help you guys knowing what goes where by doing this as we are. So I'm taking one for the team. Okay, I'm just holding it in place for now between fingers and thumb. This is going dead center on the clamp, and hopefully, let's see how we go. There we go. It's just about lined up. It's slightly on the wonk, but that's going to line itself up as I continue to twist. You can see, hopefully, that it's going in. And we're going to do this all the way until it has located itself. Now, if you get yourself to a point where it doesn't feel like it's going any further, you're probably at the end of your thread. So we can just push this through. Oops. A little bit more. There we go. Remember to line up again, because it cannot go in on the wonk. There we go. Tighten that up a bit more. Sounds like I'm killing a guinea pig. I'm not, in case you're wondering. Okay, there we go. That is bang on in place. We can remove this, and now I'm going to take us round back to the front of the bike again for the final part of the process. Okay, now we're ready to install the cable. It's at this point it's really important to make sure the cable is fitting over or under the other cables. Otherwise, you're going to have to remove those things in order to make it fit the way you wanted it to. I did have a double check before starting the movie, so I think we're in place. You can see there's some fluid here on my finger, so there's a little bit of fluid still in the reservoir, but because this part is secure and airtight, much like the whole physics test with the straw on the tongue, fluid isn't really going to be leaking from here. Okay, we're going to put this to the end of the lever. It can go in a bit further, so you've got to push quite hard and it will just locate itself in the right place. And then you're going to push the olive in and then also finger tighten this bolt. It will go fairly tight, but now you need to get hold of your 8mm spanner, the one you used to undo the last lever, to do this one up. There we go. Just tighten this up. Make sure it's not cross-threaded. Honestly, it's very difficult to, because it's metal on metal. It's well made, and if you've been able to finger tighten it, then it probably wasn't going to go anywhere. Now there's a bit of fluid leaking out, so it could be air will get into the system, in which case a bleed is going to be required, but I think we might be all right. And what you're doing at the moment is we're crushing the olive in place, so it's doing its job well, and once it really nips into place, you are in business. Okay, that's about as tight as it needs to be. The next thing to do is to clean everything up to make sure there's no mineral oil fluid anywhere. This stuff is horrible, so if you get fluid on any part of the braking system, it's going to ruin your brakes. You're going to get that horrible groany squealing noise when you brake. So this is isopropyl alcohol mixed with water. It's a fantastic thing, and it eats up any mineral oil, in fact anything that can cause a problem for the brake pads. Give it a good squirt liberally and then wipe everything off. Now it's a case of doing the lever up to how you want it. Don't worry if you don't get it quite right, because no doubt you may want to adjust it when you're riding the bike a bit later on, but you just need to get inside, secure it in place. As I say, not ever so tight at the moment, because it may well need adjusting a bit later on, but just enough to hold it in place. And then we can begin to adjust the caliper to the brakes, and now we can find out if there's air in the system through the cutting process. I'm quietly confident it'll be just fine. Now, if you remember earlier on, I said we wouldn't do up the caliper completely tightly. This is the reason why. We're going to squeeze the brake lever and the caliper is going to move like that. There we go. So by holding the lever and continuing to hold it, you're now going to tighten up the caliper fully, which will hold it in place, and that should have perfectly aligned the caliper to the disc. Okay, moment of truth. If you're securing the wheel, now's the time to remove what is securing it. Give it a spin and let's go braking. Look at that. Bang on. For me, there is no air in the system. Brakes are really sharp, really effective, and stopping perfectly. So there it is. Job done. We're pretty much there. It's time to just attach the dust cap onto the end. I would give everything a spray once more just to be sure. I would also check all bolts are done up, the retainer bolt for the cable, the caliper bolts and the lever bolt. Make sure everything is in place as it is. You can chuck on your handlebar grip and go for a ride. And there you are. You can now cut and adjust a hydraulic Shimano brake cable. It's pretty similar as a process in all hydraulic brake systems, except that the olive and the pin that goes into the middle of the cable, they will be different. This is unique to Shimano. Nevertheless, you now know how you need to do it. You now know what you need to avoid as well. And in terms of fitting the calipers, don't be scared because it's hydraulic. As long as you go through each process, follow the steps as they are in the video, you really can't go far wrong. Okay, that's it for another video. Please do like, please do subscribe to the channel. Be signed up for notifications as well, because I'm releasing videos all the time. And in the comments section, if there's anything particularly you want me to do a how-to video for, then let me know. In the meantime, stay safe Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.